habitat and the micro or the microhabitat of the organism. So where is like where this organism lives or resides. It can be a habitat, it can be a microhabitat. Then Y addresses or looks basically at reasons for the distribution, or they can be reasons for the abundance, reasons for distribution, abundance, for the structure and function. So this is very important for us to note in as the 3 W's of the ecology concept: the what, the where, and why. What organism lives where and why it lives where it lives. So this is for the 3 W's basically. But we want to look at another thing which is very interesting. Those are levels of organization of organisms within an ecosystem. So we need to look at levels of organization of these organisms within the ecosystem. So levels of organization, and our first level is going to be the key level, that is an organism. Individual organism. So this individual organism is the first level of organization. After the individual organism, the next level of organization is a population. Then the third level of organization is the community. Then another level of organization. From the community, we have what we refer to as the ecosystem. Then after the ecosystem, the other level of organization is a biome, and finally we have what we refer to as a biosphere. So let's have a look at the first level of organization. By definition, an individual organisms, this refers to organisms with the same structure. Those organisms with the same structure and can breed, are capable of breeding to give rise to viable offsprings. And these ones, such organisms, constitute what we refer to as a species. So if we have individual organisms having the same structure and they have the capacity to breed and give rise to viable offsprings, they constitute what we refer to as a species. So this is the first level of organization, the individual organism. For example, we have organism A. For example, we have Homo sapien as that organism. Homo sapien, man, as that organism, the individual organism. Then we have another level which is a population. Then we need to also define what a population is. For a population is defined as a group of organisms. The keyword is of the same species. A population constitutes organisms of the same species. Group of organisms of the same species living. In fact, the best word is occupying a specific area at a given time. So that is a population. Population are organisms of the same species, keyword same species, occupying a specific area at a given time. We have to give an account of time. Time is inclusive in the definition of a population. Then a community is simply an interaction of populations. So if we have interactions of different populations, if we have populations interacting together, they form what we call a community. An ecosystem combines a community plus the abiotic factors. So if we have a community, populations that are differing, plus abiotic factors, they form what we refer to as the ecosystem. And the ecosystem is the basic functional unit, or we can refer to it as the basic functional ecological unit. Ecological is the basic functional ecological unit in which the community or the organisms within a community are interacting with the abiotic components. In other words, for you to locate the difference between a community and an ecosystem is that a community has only the biotic components, that is the population, but an ecosystem combines the community plus the abiotic components, the ones we saw in the first lecture, the introduction of the lecture, the abiotic components, non-living components. Then a biome, we will define a biome with our future lectures, but biomes are simply regions. We can define them as simply regions with the same different regions within the world having the same climate, plants, and animals. So we can simply define biomes as that. Then biosphere is any region or any place in Earth, that supports life. So any region in Earth that is inhabitable and supports life, it can be soil, it can be water and air that has the capacity to support life or is inhabitable by organisms, is referred to as biosphere. So an organism cannot survive unless it is within the biosphere. Out of the biosphere, that means death, because out of the biosphere does not support life. Then, so that is it basically for the individual organism. We've seen that specific organism that includes organisms that can breed to give rise to viable offspring, which constitute a species, a population, group of organisms of the same species occupying a specific area at a given period of time. Then a community simply defined as interactions of the population. We have different population interacting to form what we refer to as a community. Then ecosystem is where we have the community together with the abiotic factors. Biome, regions characterized with the same climate, plants and animals. Then biosphere, any region within Earth that supports life. Let's have a look at the dimensions of ecology. So we're going to have different dimensions of ecology. And there are basically 3 dimensions of ecology we are going to see. And first dimension, we have what we refer to as a descriptive dimension of ecology. Then the functional dimension of ecology. Then we also have the evolutionary, descriptive, functional, then evolutionary dimension of ecology. So the descriptive, we are going now to define each. Descriptive dimension of ecology, what it means, functional, what it means, and evolutionary dimension, what it means. So descriptive dimension, this one gives an account for or an account of the observed structures or features of an organism. So, a descriptive type of ecology or dimension of ecology gives an account for the observed structures or features of they may be of an organism, of an ecosystem. For example, here we can give an example of tropical. For example, the tropical rainforests, can abbreviate them as TRF, tropical rainforests. They can be an example under the descriptive. So if you describe the components, the structure, or you give an account of the structure of the tropical rainforest, that is descriptive dimension of the ecology. Then we have another dimension which is functional. We say we have 3 dimensions: descriptive, functional, then evolutionary. So we've said the first one gives an account for the observed structures, for example, tropical rainforests. Then for functional dimension, for it describes, in fact, it explains and gives an account of the observed structures or features. So this one is more of a modification of the descriptive. Descriptive is giving an account of the observed structures or features, but in functional dimension, it explains and gives an account of the observed structures or features. Then evolutionary dimension, finally, the third dimension. For it addresses or looks at ecology. This one looks at ecology as organisms, as products of evolution, and co-evolution, as products of evolution and co-evolution with the environment. So this one looks at the evolutionary dimension. We look at organisms as products of evolution and co-evolution with their environment. For example, okay, now for the evolutionary dimension, for it will basically look at 2 things. That is adaptability to the environment, how adapted organisms are to the environment, and the survival, such that when these organisms survive, they can give rise to offsprings, pass on their genes and give rise to new offsprings which can also survive. So adaptability is a key thing, and suitability for the survival to the environment is also another key thing. So here, for example, we can give a typical example in ecology. For example, evolution of a prey. In fact, it will work better when we start with a predator, evolution of a predator. But at the same time, the prey evolves. For example, if we have a lion or if we have a cheetah chasing a rabbit, the cheetah evolves speed, it increases in speed, then also as the rabbit increases in its speed. So this is co-evolution. They are both evolving at the same time for adaptability. As the predator evolves, the prey evolves also to survive better and escape the predator. So that is more of what we look at in the evolutionary dimension of ecology. We can also give another thing, another basic thing, which you can also expound more on, what they refer to as the Red Queen hypothesis. It can also give you a clue about the Red Queen hypothesis, can give you a clue about the evolutionary dimension of ecology. Then we can also have examples where the parasite evolves and also the host evolving. So that is it with the dimensions of ecology. So let's have a look at response and adaptations to variations within the environment. If we have variations, how do organisms adapt? How do they respond to variations? And these responses are divided into three responses, and we have three basic responses. The first one is behavior, the second one is morphological, and finally the third one is like we are going to see. We have behavior, then morphological responses, then behavior, morphological, and physiological. So these responses are basically, they can be behavior, they can be morphological and physiological. So what we need to know is to have some examples under the behavior responses, morphological responses, and the physiological responses. So let's start with the physiological responses. So organisms can have some physiological responses to as an adaptation to the environment. For example, one we can give homeostasis. And homeostasis is simply defined as the maintenance of a constant internal environment. So maintenance of a constant internal environment is what we refer to as homeostasis. For example, organisms that are warm-blooded will try as much to keep their temperature to the normal, to the core body temperature. So that is a form of a physiological adaptation, homeostasis. Then another physiological adaptation we can have is pathways, metabolic pathways. The metabolic pathways. For example, metabolic pathway for C3 plants, C4 plants, and let's say the one for CAM plants. So these are physiological adaptations. So C3 plants will have a pathway, and C4 plants will have a specific pathway, and CAM plants will follow a specific pathway as an adaptation to their environment, as a physiological response. So that is a metabolic pathway, homeostasis. We can have also things like diapause. This one is involved in insects. Insects as also a mechanism, a physiological regulation response. Then we can have a look at the morphological. Morphology deals with the structure, the body orientation, the structure of the body, and how it is shaped and the rest. So under morphological, we'll have streamline. We'll have streamlined bodies, a body in streamlined bodies. For example, in fish. So the streamlined body in fish helps them to resist drag, to reduce resistance when swimming in water. That is a morphological adaptation. Then for birds, we can give an example of birds. Birds have hollow bones, bones that are hollow bones, and these hollow bones, the hollow bones are lightweight. They reduce the weight that the bird has to carry such that it has effective flight. Then we can also give the function, the alveoli, the numerous alveoli or air sacs in birds. That also increases chances of survival when they are flying in higher altitudes that have limited oxygen. So this is a morphological adaptation. Then behavioral adaptations we can give, for example, thigmotropism. This is response to touch, thigmotropism. For example, in plants like mimosa, Mimosa pudica. Mimosa pudica, this one responds to touch. Phygmotropism can be a behavior response. Then we have temporal. We have temporal variation. Temporal variation in feeding of birds. In feeding among birds is also a behavioral adaptation. Then also reptiles. Reptiles reducing on the intake of food or their metabolism on during hot weather conditions or during high temperature. So these are basically the responses and adaptations, the major divisions. Behavior, they can be behavioral, morphological, physiological. Physiological, internal body processes like homeostasis, metabolic pathways, diapause in insects. Then morphological deals with the body orientation, that is the streamline. We can talk of the hollow bones, the numerous air sacs. And behavior, where we have responses like phygmotropism, temporal variation in feeding among the birds, and reptiles reducing the metabolic rate in hot weather.